Good evening. Welcome to Investigator News, and this is the World War III report and news. And me and William are your hosts. He's the hostess with the mostest. I don't know, William. Do you think so? I'm gonna call you the hostess with the mostest. Yep. So,
You're scaring me.
I sat and listened to William today for a while, and yeah, he had a lot to say, so he might end up taking over for the show today. I might just listen. Um, and I know I promised everyone for my granddaughter to come in and do the pledge. She was already at 4 o'clock asking about turkey in the fridge. And I went out there to get her, and she's sound asleep, folks. And I don't want to wake her up because then we'll get grouchy Pledge of Allegiance instead of the happy one she did for me earlier. So I will have to move her pledge to another show. Uh, Now, I know everybody has heard about the shootings that has happened today, and questions remain unanswered. There's no word of what sparked last night's shooting, but we do know that the gunman was a Walmart employee, police say, and he used a pistol and apparently died of self-inflicted gunshot wound after killing six and injuring four others. Um, the gunman and the employees um, at Walmart basically they claim now witnesses claim that this gentleman, and I heard it's a manager, had basically had disappeared for about an hour. No one knew where he was at, and then he walked into the break room and opened fire on five employees, six employees, and then shot himself. Um, so Now, they are doing a big investigation following the six victims. They said they have died. Four victims are in hospitals with conditions unknown at this time, they say. They're keeping it very quiet. And they said that the timeline was at 10:12 p.m. last night. The first 911 call went into the dispatcher. 2 minutes later, officers arrived on the scene. It is a farce that it took them over an hour to get there. And how do I know this? Because a friend of mine from Virginia got a hold of me and was watching somebody that had it on their phone. Um, that it basically about 20, 25 after the cops were already there and entering the building. So don't let people tell you this crap that took them an hour. It did not. They arrived, they say, at 12 p.m. Or 10:14. So I found out about 20 after. Now, they did arrive on the scene and they did enter. Now, get this, this is what bugs me. They did enter Walmart at 11:20. Now, I heard they went right in. Now, this is according to the police report. The scene was declared safe and they found the gunman dead. And they basically say that, the hearts go out to the families. This is something horrible. 2 days before Thanksgiving. And then, lo and behold, and William sent me this one, a Philly shooting, and it began at 1 o'clock today. And they were multiple reports that high school students were being shot about a block away from the school. Um, and that the officials basically were on the scene very quickly. There were bullets flying about a block away from their school. Now, four students are hit, and they learned they're in the hospital in stable condition. Um, Man, oh man, what is going on? 2 days before Thanksgiving. Um, uh, you just I'm speechless on this because it just makes no sense and get this, the gunman, they're not giving us his name. Me and William discussed this a little bit, and there's something up, folks. They got very quiet. They don't want to give his name. They don't want to tell us, it was a handgun. It was not this big old gun with all these bullets spraying all over Walmart. That didn't happen. It was a handgun. Now, you can have a handgun with a clip. that will shoot multiple rounds. Um, and are they going? Is this something? I don't want to be like Alex Jones and say this that it's a setup or a false report. What do they call it, William? Uh, uh, I'm a loss of words.
False flag.
Yeah, there you go. I don't want to say it's a false flag because there are real people that die and the families are just broken. I know when my son died. Uh, when I first found out, it took me at least a week for to register that he was dead. Um, and it does hurt the families. And saying a false flag like that's just wrong. But there are certain things about how they go about it. If it's new, if it helps the news and it helps politicians, they're going to report on it. If it doesn't help them, they don't. And for some reason, it's just not getting out. There's another story though, William, that's not getting out that Tucker brought on. And man, this is disturbing, William. I gotta find it real quick. Um, let's see. All right, because I want to make sure I get the names right. Balenciagas, Balenciagas. It's a um, well-known. They do purses, shoes, all the accessories, and kind of like you want to have their stuff. They came out with um, um, an ad, and it's a campaign that used bondage and teddy bears and children, and showing the kids in sexual fashion. Um, and it was okay. And they said, well, now they're saying, oh, well, we shouldn't have done it. And the CEOs and all of them and their advertising agencies are saying, oh, it's okay. We don't think it's right, and we're going to chastise this. But they're the ones that approved it. Um, it's shocking use of children. Basically, they had a teddy bear. I'm not going to show it. I'm not going to give them the 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 airtime. But I mean, it's a little girl holding a bear that shows sexual bondage. It shows a little girl laying down with a table spread of sexual devices. Um, and then it shows paperwork of sex, sex, sex all over it. Like it's even though they got charged with some sexual inappropriate, they're displaying it so it's something wonderful. And where one child stood on the couch while holding a purple teddy bear, and she was dressed in a bondage outfit, including leather straps wrapped around the teddy bear's neck. Um, and ruffled thigh straps, according to the on screen shots. Another photo, a different child stood in front of a table, merchandise holding other bondage teddy bear stuff, and saying that this was neat. The kids need teddy bears with sexual bondage. And they say for kindergartners.
I remember when kids just like teddy bears. That was
Uh, um, and I looked at the pictures and I'm just disgusted. It's their way of bringing, the CRT and this bringing sex to kids. Now, get this, um, William. Ice released, and I know me and you talked about this early. Me and Mary even talked about this. ICE was able to find 6,000 kids that were being used for human trafficking. And they were thinking about, remember the boat in New York? They were thinking about putting them on that boat for safekeeping until they arrested everybody that needed to be arrested. And I thought, wow, what are they going to do with a loss of 6 to 10,000 kids? Where are they going to get this replaced? Boy, I'm going to cough. Um, and then I seen the answer. when they had said they were going to open the borders and all the kids could come. And I went, oh no, oh no. And then we have about five, they said 5 to 8,000 kids have disappeared in the United States without parents that came across that border. And I thought, there you go. Now they're doing this. Oh boy, oh boy. Um, Susan, you got a good point there. um, who lets their kids do this? You guys remember Pizzagate? Oh boy, the pictures that came out of Pizzagate were disgusting. And they were like, oh, it was just bad humor. Boy, I'm like, oh. Heck, I might have to have William take over. I'm coughing. Um, Pizzagate was one too that they were showing pictures of kids in a sexual manner. And they were like, oh no, our pizza place isn't about that. The problem is they showed the pictures. It's not the fact they were doing anything wrong. It's the fact that like this, um, these pictures that we were being shown that said this is okay. Well, they were saying, yeah, it was okay. It didn't mean that the pizza place was horrible or they were doing anything in their basements. No one said that. It was the media that ran with it and said we were a conspiracy saying it. But no, we're not the ones that said it. It was the media that brought it up because I was looking at that. Now, I heard it in the middle of the night through WikiLeaks, and I'm not going to tell you who reported it. And I was like, you know what? This isn't right. And I had a feeling back then we were going to start seeing a lot more of this. And now we're seeing this, and the media kept quiet. A bunch of perverts. This is what the Democrats voted for, though. Remember, I keep saying it's not the politicians. The Democrats know the stuff that they voted on this, and this was their decision. And I'm saying that we are now looking at the decisions that the Democrat voters have made, and now they're just going to push it all forward. And this is something that they like. They're perverts, every one of them. And Epstein, I even reported yesterday about Epstein that one of his victims has now released thousands of who was a part of Epstein. Now, William, you're mentioning that they throw all this stuff up to cloud sometimes with the war. And I think what's going on.
They'll run a psychological operations against countries that they're targeting.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the timing, the shock value of the thing, you add some other commentary, say, on some global event that people are upset about, and pretty soon you can devise a narrative and get people to think that maybe they should stand down, not be critical of their government, something like that, or be critical of their government, depending on what the aim is of the outside source. And it's just basic psychological warfare used against a nation. It goes on all the time, especially with powerful nations that other nations want to do their bidding for them, or perhaps they want to exhaust in some way economically or militarily or even spiritually for that matter, and get them prepared for their own downfall.
Mm-hmm. Now, I kind of want to move on. Now we are looking at. Now there's a big thing about some islands. Let's see if I can find it. I don't know if you heard about this, William. It's 100 islands in East Indonesia. The Coral Triangle is up for auction. And they're saying that it looks like China might get every single bit of it. They're buying that. And get this, we also found there is 1,000 acres here in the United States that China is looking at buying. So we have not only them looking at these islands, and this is Indonesia, Bali, they say it's up for sale, known as the Witty Reserve. It's 100 and plus islands in East Indonesia called the Coral Triangle that are spread over 85,000 miles, pretty much, two-thirds the size of India. Um, so, um,
Wouldn't it still be administered by Indonesia, even though, say, China or Russia or some other country were to buy them? They would still be under the national, the nation of Indonesia. It would still be administered by them. They would just be the property owners. Just like if I were to buy property in Kansas, it wouldn't be the nation of William. It would just be Kansas, and I would just be a property owner. Or are they saying that they're going to hand it over to China if they purchase it?
well, they're not really. They have restrictions. Now the big thing is, William, they can't get to it by boat. There's no way. So they're not going to get a port in there. The only way to get there is by airplane, and it is home to hundreds of blue whales, sharks. They said marine mammals, fish, birds, insects, lizards. Well, the little things really don't matter. But they said that this is something that they want to protect, um, and they keep it under like an environmental, agricultural, or for the animals, uh, to be able to keep it the way it is. So now I know what China's going to do to it. I mean, William, they're not there for the whales. They're definitely not there for the
Well,
whales.
they might very well be there for the whales. I don't know. They have to have food sources.
Yeah. Randy asked if it was international waters. Yes. Well, no. Yeah, I'm going to say international waters. Um,
Well, anything within 200 miles of an Indonesian
right.
would be an economic zone. So that would be a protected economic economic zone within 200 miles of the coast of any one of those islands. So if Indonesia said that was a preserve, then there would be no fishing allowed. But
Uh-huh.
if for whatever reason Indonesia didn't say that, then they'd be free to fish it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm see the thing is, William, is China is big time on this, and I have a funny feeling it's not going to be about the animals. It's going to be about putting probably airstrips on it. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
They're going to say, "Oh, we love the whales," and they're going to have probably buy every person in China a stuffed toy whale and do pictures of hugging whales. But in the meantime, they're going to be throwing that airstrip out there. China lies. And their news is so much propaganda that we really have to look what they're going to use it for. Just like the islands they're building up, they got what I want to say three or four that they have built, and it was for military. It was not for saving the whales. They instantly put airstrips on there. Um, so um, that's pretty much what um, is happening over there now. Um, where's the 1,000 acres located? Um, let's see. Let me go back.
It's right on the Indian Ocean.
Yeah. Uh, it's East Indonesia. It's called the Coral Triangle, and it's a spread about over 885,000 hectares. They say roughly two-thirds the size of India or New Delhi. Um, And it's basically a reserve that forms a pristine change of tropical islands surrounded by 150 miles of powder white sand beaches. Uh, Randy, this is I mean, it's beautiful, supposedly. Um, and it could be used as a resort. But if China jumps in and buys it, it's not going to be no resort. It's going to be used militarily. See, that's my concern. Is they've already got those few islands they built, and then William, me and you have talked about Taiwan having all those little itty bitty islands that is so easy to overtake.
Yeah, so they all these bigger islands are typically uh, have a bunch of small islands around because these are all shallow seas. They're all shallow coral seas, and they're prime fishing grounds. They're uh, the they form a barrier island ring that goes out into the deep ocean of the Pacific, and then on the other side, on the outer islands that face towards the Indian Ocean, the same thing occurs. So then there's a shallow sea around these islands, and then it drops off into the deep Indian Ocean.
Yeah. Now she was talking about the 1,000 acres she wants to know about here in America. Now they are buying quite a bit in Texas that's right next to military installations, but then they're hitting up Iowa, Indiana, and Massachusetts. I think it was one in Maine. Um, Now Maine, I believe Maine are going after the shut down dairy farms that I talked about uh, yesterday, where they're shutting down the dairy farms, and they're in the meantime, China has moved in and have bought up some of these to say they're going to save it, but they're opening up their own. Um, and so, Randy, that's pretty much what we're looking at is it in between all of these different states, it all adds up to right about 1,000 acres that they have grabbed onto. And it's with the fact that they can be able to farm, do their own farming. But again, now get this. They've also mentioned that whatever they farm goes to China. It doesn't go to feed us. It goes to China. So this is my big pet peeve with it is, and not only that, during the Bundys, when the Bundys were about the turtles, one of their neighbors said that they were chased out, and that China bought the property, and that it was the first part of setting up a technical. I think it was um, when we were back not on five, but we were on I think three. Um, for our phone service and internet. And they were buying it up and putting starting to put towers, but also the big buildings that stored the computer components. And that was during Bundy. So, um, no, Randy, it's not the fact that um, that the farmer in Indiana would sell to the Chinese. It's the fact that if you watched yesterday's show, the government moves in and they break you. They break you until you can't afford your farm anymore, and you either lose it or sell it. So they sell it, and they have no way to even say who gets it, and they're coming in as, hey, I'm Joe Smith and I'm going to buy this property, and it ends up being China. Randy, they don't do this the right way. China's sneaky, and
They
then
use a cutout purchaser to do it.
yeah, they use another purchaser to do it. And it's not that um, a farmer in Indiana would do this. It's they're being snookered. Um, I mean, look at the what I said yesterday, and I don't want to go too far into it because you can always watch yesterday's show. To where was it? Yeah, for Monday it was um, the eco of how they're going. The feds are going in and they look at like the sheep. Oh, and raw milk. No, you can't have the sheep. You can't have raw milk. Raw milk's bad. Uh, and then they start hitting them up with citations and policies and hitting them up with high taxes. Then they go in and they investigate and they throw worms on the ground, or they throw something that will get it to where they can confiscate things. Then they take the equipment. Then they start shutting down your farms. And then, like I was saying, $1 million for each farm that they have shut down across this country that has been doing everything on the up and up. And then look at, we have this processed plant that just got shut down for mold that get to test themselves. But these little itty bitty farms and the ones with the GMOs, they just running them out. And once they run them out and the feds go after them till they have nothing left, then China says, huh, okay, well, guess what? And it's like William just said, they get another purchaser in there, they purchase it, and then lo and behold, it belongs to China. I mean, if
uh, we had the same thing happening in British Columbia, uh, where the Chinese had come in and set up investment groups, and all the prices of homes and places for people to live in British Columbia were going through the roof. Especially in Vancouver, and it was Chinese money that could outcompete the population because they
Mhm.
had more money, and so
Yeah.
it was driving up the price of all the real estate in the area. And then additional people were losing their homes because of high taxes, because the values of their homes had went up so much they couldn't keep up with the taxes. Liens were put on their property, and pretty soon they had to leave. And of course, the Chinese bought it up at a good deal that
Hmm.
way.
Well, just like the cattle ranch down in Texas, it was right next to the military base. They ended up, and the neighbors are going, "How'd that happen?" We heard some whatever Johnson bought it. No, ended up being like Wugo or something that got it. They're not going to let people know that it's China, otherwise the people wouldn't sell. Randy, watch Farmland on YouTube. That'll explain what exactly. This is all documented, and these are families that they had. One family had the FBI, and they spent $1 million to watch them for months. Uh, they came in with a SWAT team, over a dozen feds, the USDA. They had the county sheriff's department and police department come in with guns drawn for a husband, wife, and 4 kids. And some of the kids were even 5, 6 years old, and they held guns on them. Watch Farmland, Randy. It's a rude awakening. And this was done a long time ago, but it's still happening. And when I called up to some of these farms of these some of these people to see if it was still happening, they told me yes. They're shutting down these dairy farms. They're shutting down the cattle farms and pig farms, and not only that, but our veggies. They're doing the same thing to the vegetables. Hey, your veggies aren't good enough. You're not good
And
enough. You're not using the
they're not
GMOs.
doing it just here in the United States either. They're doing it in other places around
Right.
the world. They're trying to gain a
Canada
foothold.
is being
Any
hit
place they
hard.
can get economic power into that area, then they can start to subvert it.
Yeah. So, all right. I didn't want to spend a whole bunch there. Uh, Now, William, did you hear about the fire at the Ayatollah's house? They burned it to the ground. Heck yeah. Um,
Well, I
uh,
don't wish that on anybody,
I
but if
know.
it were going to
No,
happen to somebody,
um, no, because we had one happen to my daughter's house, and it was not a neat thing. Um, but they have been having um, protesters. And the protesters decided to go on a march, and they went to the former home of the Islamic cleric who founded Iran's Islamic dictatorship. And the protesters burned the building down, which has served as, and it wasn't just a home uh, of Ruhollah Khomeini. um, they said formerly lived in the structure, but it was served as a museum for several years. And one even posted it to Twitter that showed the structure on fire while protesters walked and chanted around it. Um, um, they also described another home that they think belonged to one of the leaders that was destroyed also. So um, the protesters are, it's not the people, it is, it is just like CCP. China, the people of China aren't real bad. In fact, they are very loving people. It's the certain government types that come in and they take over. Um, like the CCP with China. But not only that, but it's even the Ayatollahs in Iran. Um, now,
Well, the so Iran's a theocracy, but it's a totalitarian theocracy. And so the difference between it and communism is communism is atheist, meaning there is no religion, just the leader. But in a totalitarian theocracy, the leader is, the next person to God. He's like the great prophet. So uh, the end product is the same, except for one has an imposed religion and the other has an excluded religion.
yeah. And now the other thing is what's going on is North Korea. Now I know we've seen his daughter this week, but they're revealing that the missile launches are basically they are trying to um, put out a statement to South Korea and U.S. forces that tactical targets in the southern half of the Korean Peninsula, it should not be allowed. And they didn't get the permission to do so. So they are now going to, they said, increase the number of North Korean missile tests. And they have fired 80 missiles in a 3-day window earlier this month. And this is according to officials from the US and South Korea. Now, they said that he calls it a vigilant storm, a joint military uh, uh, drills that has been going on, and they're getting closer and closer to his border. And so this is his response. Now, William, me and you talked about this. And my thing is, we have been giving military aid to Ukraine by the millions, billions. We also been giving it millions, billions to Iran. Um, and this is,
We've been giving it to Iran.
well, we gave him pallets of money, though.
Well, yeah, that we did, yes.
And that was
Under
during Obama. But, then it went silent under the Biden administration. Now, I do not know. Now, I heard Hillary, now this is only during Obama, that they were offering Kim Jong Un some money the same way they did Iran. But I don't know if it was ever accepted. I never did find anything on it.
So what they do with Kim Jong Un, because he's isolated, is they don't give him money, but what they do is they offer, even though there's sanctions, when his people begin to starve, they offer them the ability to buy food. And so, in a way, I guess that's sort of the same thing, but it's in more of a humanitarian vein.
Yeah, but we've learned though through past, okay, that if we give them aid or we send them food through U.S. aid, the government takes it for themselves and and for their military. It doesn't really go to the people as much unless we go over there and make sure it's handed out to them. Otherwise,
Well, it's a bargaining chip for the state.
right. And so now we have done this with military equipment too. And, I was looking at it with Ukraine, and it's like, why do we keep giving them more and more missiles and military aid and military might for them just to keep going at Russia, going at Russia, going at Russia. And what we're seeing now is other countries are getting tired of it. And they're saying, no, we kind of want to back out. Now we got the United States saying the same thing. And it's like, wait a minute now, we just gave them millions and millions of dollars worth of, or sent them military. And so it's like, wait a minute, we have been doing this for a very long time. And I have traced it all the way back to, and then I asked William on this earlier. Did we do this for Vietnam?
We did do it for Vietnam. We gave them a lot of military aid and training advisors to learn how to use it. We gave huge amounts of aid to South Korea after the World War II in the Pacific. And, we've done the same thing with the Philippines at times.
Mm-hmm.
We've done it with a lot of nations around the world, especially ones that are being encroached on by communist or totalitarian governments.
Uh-huh. Now we did it for Iraq. The only thing with Iraq is we put in a whole bunch of equipment, and then when it was time to leave, we left it. And then come to find out, we were also sending military and military aid to not only the Taliban, but Al Qaeda and ISIS. And I think it's, I never heard of Pakistan. I should have asked you on the phone because that's where they were training the terrorists, was in Pakistan. And, I always wondered if we were sending stuff to Afghanistan because we were there fighting after Iraq, if we actually was sending military might to Pakistan.
Yeah, we had joint agreements in Pakistan. We supplied them arms, aircraft, stuff like that in Pakistan as a balance, as a modicum of a balance to India. But primarily in Pakistan, it was a monetary thing. They were looking for equipment. They could buy it from the Soviet Union or from Russia, and we would rather at least have our equipment there than Russian or Soviet equipment. So it was
Mm-hmm.
two, one half dozen the other.
And to see now we're doing the same thing with Taiwan. Now, and we're what I'm seeing is we're slowing down over in um, Ukraine, and Ukraine is starting to kind of die down. And I think it's because just this week we're starting to see, and this comes from Eva Bartlett, that many countries, even EU, and that is starting to see that Zelensky isn't on the up and up like they thought, and they're starting to see him just as the actor that he was. But they knew that, and here we're pouring all this money and military might in there, and in a way it sets him up so he could protect himself. But
Well, 8 months ago, Europe wasn't in decline, economic decline like it is right now. So yeah, it was a good idea then, but now it's cold. We're in decline. Where are we going to find our energy?
mm-hmm.
All those things are going on, and they're saying, well, this is a lot harder sell to democracies in Europe that can vote their governments out really quick. It's not like the United States where we have a slow change of power. They can have quick changes of power.
Mm-hmm.
When you have democracy, it's just 51%, and that's it. The government's over, and they start a new government. They have to organize a new government. So when you have to sell a protracted war, that doesn't go over too well.
Yeah. And now, even with the sanctions, as many harsh sanctions we put on Russia, Russia is now prospering and they're growing. Everybody else over there, and this is something we mentioned earlier, is Russia is growing, the EU is going down, and this would be a perfect opportunity, like the United States being weak, UK is weak, EU is weak, and Russia is licking its chops, looking at EU saying, you know what, keep getting weaker because uh, uh, Europe doesn't really have a military might. You know, because there's no water, there's no navy, there's no. They have to depend on NATO um, to step in and be able to fight these wars. But if they're
So,
going to build up Russia, that like you said earlier, this just sets it up for Russia to hit up um, Europe and maybe keep going after they get what they want out of Ukraine.
or Germany to take off and
Hmm.
overrun its neighbors. I mean, there's a bunch of
Yeah.
different possibilities. But Europe was designed wasn't designed to be an offensive force. It was designed to be a defensive force against the Soviet Union. So they have minimal armaments. They have minimal sized militaries, which is good for them because they're primarily socialist democracies, which means they don't have much money because they spend most of it on social programs and such.
Hmm.
So who do they go to when they need some
NATO.
extra armaments? They need a larger military.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, see, they were
they look
sold. They were sold on the whole socialist idea, and they went with it. Now they're finding out. I think it was even Poland that said, "You know what? I think we made the wrong decision." And the Netherlands are even saying it. They're all starting to line up, saying, "You know what? The socialist plan isn't working." And not only
so.
that,
Remember,
but giving
you remember
everything to
when I told
Ukraine
you
isn't
that?
working.
Remember when I told you that when a leader goes into war, they believe that they can control the war, but once they're in the war controls them.
Hmm.
That's what we're seeing now.
Oh
They don't
yeah,
like it now.
yeah. And it's getting old, and we see everybody not really paying attention. And now that we've moved from midterm elections, and then we've gone to now it's the holidays. Everybody really doesn't want to hear about Ukraine. And the thing about it is, uh, William, me and you were talking about this is the UK, and I was telling you quite a few years back. Is I'm going to say about 10 years ago. I met a handful from the UK that said they hate the United States. And they are all
Well,
for being their own leaders. Um, and that, their MI6 and we're going to talk about this a little bit, is the whole drama thing, the whole making it um, like we're
theater.
theater. There you go. It's the theater mode. And that's what we're seeing here in the United States, too. It's almost like we copy them. And the BBC has even caught this, and so is Sky News. And they're starting to say, wait a minute now. Uh, everything, it seems like, okay, now Ukraine is kind of dying down. So we need some chaos. We need some, let's muddy up the waters. And so they have got their own little thing going. We're throwing up some theatrics over here with our elections and then all of these mass shootings all of a sudden. And
So
go ahead.
we're right now we're in a change of power, and there are power struggles going on within the Republican Party. Who's going to be the leader? How that's going to shake out as far as the United States as world power, how we're going to approach the world into the future, the direction the nation's changing. Well, when all those things are in play, you can expect the absolute most chaos that everybody can produce.
Hmm. Oh yeah. Um,
And meaning, especially intelligence agencies
yeah.
that
And
that that may be pretending to be our friends that may not be exactly our friends. Because remember, in the world, the enemy of my enemy is my friend until my other enemy is gone, and then the new friend enemy that became a friend is once again an enemy.
yeah.
It's a really cut and dried thing. it's basic laws of the jungle, and that's just the way, especially smaller nations have to conduct themselves in order to survive at all. And if they have any grander notions, they're going to do it even to a greater extent.
Yeah. Now, one of the theatrics that one of the big things that stands out to me is when Camilla Harris went over to Indonesia, and she was like, ended up meeting with Jinping and said, we back you up. We're okay. Uh, let's do more trading and more foreign relations. Let's get a little bit closer. And then it shows, and this was, I think she went to Taiwan after that. And what she told Taiwan is what blew me away. You guys need to get rid of your fossil fuels. You need to be on track with the rest of us. It was nothing about support. And I thought that was.
So they know we're busy with Ukraine. They know we're looking down the barrel with having to help Iran if they get into a squabble, or with Israel have to get into a squabble with Iran over this nuclear enrichment. We're looking at China and the Taiwan Straits. So, of course, anybody that has some agenda like climate or some United Nations control grid, that's going to be just thrown right up out in the open, because there's nothing to really stand against it while we're in a state of turmoil.
Yeah. Well, see, what got me was um, come to find out, she was meeting with, or tried to meet with Jinping behind closed doors. Well, it was a rejection type of thing. And so when it came down to it, he basically blew the whistle on them, saying all they did was say how much they support us, they're behind us, they're going to back us, and that the United States is strong. Uh, that was the one thing that got me, because me and you talked earlier that how strong the United States is. Well, she pushed the issue how strong the United States was. And then she was portraying how she was going to move into Indonesia and start looking into the drugs and stop the drugs from flowing from China into um, the United States or Mexico and across our borders. Well, now what I've heard of from Taiwan news and even China, William, is he put a stop to her on that and said, basically we're done. And she was still saying, we love you, we support you. Yeah.
A number of the countries said, look, we understand, United States, that you're a great and strong power, but we still want to be able to do business with China. We don't want to be forced to choose. And, they want to be able to make money in both directions. And they know that they don't really have those drug problems there, because if you get caught in drugs in Indonesia,
they're going to cut your fingers off.
They don't give you a long prison sentence. They take you out back of the courthouse and execute you. Yeah. They just don't have the drug problem, because it's not worth it to do that kind of business in Indonesia. You lose your life in a hurry.
Well, the thing about it is that this time now that Biden went over and talked to him, they said it was almost, and Trudeau from Canada, both of them were saying basically what Camilla Harris, I don't bun kissing, I guess, where, we're all support and we're all there for you. And, we're going to do strong trades and all that. And then also, going over and talking to Taiwan at the G20 and saying, you need to get on board with us. So it wasn't lending support, William, to Taiwan. It was kissing the buns of China, what they did.
Well,
the G20.
They all want business with China. They've all made quite a bit of money. All the countries have people with money in the United States want to continue to make money there. The problem is the CCP as a party is
Yeah.
So they want it both ways, and even here in the United States, businessmen are just starting to think about, is it worth doing business in China?
Yeah.
Um, Warren Buffett just recently started getting rid of some from Berkshire Hathaway. Just started getting rid of some of his shares in the Chinese electric vehicle market. And how long have we known that China is been predatory towards the United States?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
these businessmen know this, and yet they're so reticent to cut their ties because they want to have a fallback if the economy starts to slump here in the United States or in Europe or wherever. Then they want a place where they have a good market so that they can make money.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you could say something else if the United States all of a sudden starts having a great market and Europe starts having. The thing is money chases money, and then it leaves the military to pick up the pieces down the road.
Yeah. And see, the whole thing though is there was certain key words that Camilla Harris had said to Jinping, and then it was repeated with Biden, and so uh, and then Taiwan. It was a totally but this comes from Taiwan and the officials there that they're saying they felt kind of put on the back burner with the United States during G20, and they thought they had full support. Now, Taiwan is now looking at, okay, so they're going to start working harder with Australia and Japan because, and the question was to Biden was, do we still have your support? The answers were, you need to get on board with fossil fuels. Now,
Yeah.
William, to me, that's a little bit scary of saying that China could go in and just take Taiwan. They're all support for them working together and trade, they said. The United States is all for peaceful trade agreements with China, with Taiwan. Other than
Well,
that,
the
they
United
didn't.
States has the 13-nation framework in the Indo-Pacific region, and China's very antithetical to that. They're upset about that, and so there's this uh, push and pull and bribe and take and whatnot going on. It's a rough and tumble world of business out there, and it doesn't always follow the alignment of national security.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And so now we're looking at now when I got a hold of my reporters, and now I got four of them over there. I'm increasing in Taiwan, and the two ones I normally talk to, I sent a message and I said, "How does Taiwan feel about this?" And they said that what people don't understand is the second that Camilla Harris left, and then she was all about uh, the fossil fuels, that China ramped up its exercises. And then after she had talked to Taiwan and then she had left and they ramped it up, then it was Biden. And they said, since Biden seemed, they take it that Biden is basically taking the side of China. And this is very alarming. And and their question to a G20 was, do we still have the support of the allies? And the allies, of course, are saying yes. That's the UK, Australia, Japan, the Philippines, a lot of the Indonesia, India, and they're all for protecting them. But they really do need the might of the United States. And William, it's not that I'm saying no, but Biden isn't going to do it. I'm just saying I think they forgot that important part because if China sees a weakness, they're going to jump on it.
You have to remember that any time the president or the vice president's in the region, also China's going to initiate a show of force. And it's going to look to all these smaller nations for all the world that, oh, well, the United States maybe thinks it's okay because your president's in the region, and suddenly this increase in show of force appears that somehow the United States is going along with it. That's not necessarily true. We know the United States does want to do the climate agenda with China, and that we do have business over there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're falling in line with the CCP.
No,
but
no.
Given the state of events in the region, to the other smaller players in the region, they left to wonder, is that what's going on here?
Yeah. Well, the big thing was, and and it was very important to know, is I said, are the ships still there? Is the forces still there to protect Taiwan? And the answer was, oh, hell yeah. The United States is a mighty force, and all they have to do is move into the Taiwan Straits, and everybody backs off. And that's one thing we do have going for us. We may have a weaker president. We may have what we see our military being cut down, or we're giving away a lot of our military might, but that doesn't mean our military has gotten weaker. The generals will never let that happen.
It also doesn't mean that we won't rearm.
That's right.
It just means that at current, our stocks are running lower than they have in the past. So we have to keep that in mind as well. Remember, this is all a fluid environment, and it's all happened within, since February? So a lot of this is new chaos, and it
bad propaganda
for balances to come back up.
Yeah, and what's really sorry is it's bad propaganda, and it's bad propaganda from our own media. They're always, they're getting rid of it, and we're getting weaker, and maybe we need to think about how much we're giving away. It's so much bad propaganda. Why not say that we are number one with the bullet? Because we are still got the better military than China. They may have more, but we have been in so many wars. And we talked about it just, earlier, of how many places that we've given military to, but we're still number one with a bullet.
And remember that when it comes to training of military forces, we don't have a peer in the world. Our military knows how to not only engage in war, but to fight and protract and hold those wars if we need to. All these other nations, with the exception of Russia's fought some dandies. They get into wars, they tend to stand down, they tend to lose their training. The United States hasn't done that. We have not only trained better, but we have increased our training steadily since Vietnam. We learned our lessons in Vietnam. You saw that in Desert Storm, how we took the lessons we learned from Vietnam and we ran with those. That hasn't slowed down. That's actually increased since. Now, the types of wars we get into, we train differently for different types of threats that come on the horizon. So the way in which we prosecute the wars might change, but we have the core training and we have the core knowledge, and our people know how to adapt to it very quickly.
Yes, for sure. And I think we learned from Vietnam. I really do. The amount that was lost, the amount of lives that were lost, and I would have thought that we talked about the Korean War earlier, and then we had Vietnam, and we went through World War II. Each time, I think we learned something, but I think Vietnam really taught us that we need to be very prepared. That we don't know what they're going to do. We don't know what they have. And we needed to have troops on the ground everywhere across the globe. And that's why we do have.
Colin Powell wasn't the greatest politician. I'm one of the first ones to say that. but the Powell Doctrine that came out of Vietnam was exquisite. And when we use it, it works. And when we set it aside, we do so at our own peril.
Yeah.
Now, we used it in Desert Storm. We didn't use it when we went into Iraq. We did use it when we went into Afghanistan, and then we set it aside for nation building. As long as we have an objective and we focus on that, we get the job done and we get out and we use overwhelming force, we don't have a problem when we go to war.
Yeah.
But whenever we play politics, we play incrementalism, nation building, financial shenanigans, well, then the military suffers, and the people look at long, protracted wars that go on forever and ever.
Yeah. And you see, and then that's what we were trying not to do with after Vietnam, how long that went. And then I could remember hearing on the news, like I told you earlier, I was little, I was 8, 9 years old, maybe. And I just remember them saying that we could never have another war like this that run this long. And then look at what happened with Afghanistan. And it's like we didn't learn from that. And now we're going into this Ukraine thing, and it's going on and on and on. And we just give them weapons, they use it. Come back for more. We give them more, and they use it.
What happens when politicians decide that they can control wars?
That's right.
When we let our generals go in and we give them what they need to do the job so that it can be done with and over with as quickly as possible. It doesn't cost us as much more efficient, and our objectives are met.
Yeah.
And people don't suffer, not just on our side, but on the other side. When you look back at Desert Storm, it was a violent, brutal thing, but so many of their troops survived because we didn't let this thing drag on for 10 years. We were in with, 90 days of getting that thing off and running. Once we had our forces build up, that relatively few on both sides compared to what had been lost during the Iraq war.
Yeah.
They lost so many people. And when we went into Desert Storm, we had so many of their troops surrender in mass because they knew that they weren't going to be slaughtered and it would be over quicker.
Yeah.
They could get home.
Yeah. And that was all about oil. That's what got me, was the whole thing was about oil when we could have done it ourselves.
Oil was part of it, but what it was really about was having a strong nation attack a smaller nation next to it, just like Russia attacking Ukraine. It's the exact same principle. Oil was involved. In Ukraine, it's not oil, but it's
gas.
Steel, it's gas. There's a whole litany of things that happen right there on that border, especially in the mining sector, that's important for not just Ukraine, for Europe itself. It's a shame. I really think, even to this day, that the biggest mistake Vladimir Putin did was crossing that border, because it will have a cascade of long-acting effects so far into the future that anything that they would have gained, they've not only lost, but they've made it worse. They're trying to trade time, space for security. So what that meant is they wanted to have more security on their borders, so they want to be able to keep NATO farther away. Well, what are we talking there? We're talking 100 miles, 150 miles. How fast can the United States traverse 150 miles?
Yeah.
24 hours?
Yeah.
36 hours? That's by ground. What about by air? That's minutes.
the
That's not gaining them anything.
the
They
thing
would
with
have been far better off to gone to the United Nations and really put on a full court press there and made a charm offensive through Europe and even sold more gas and stuff
hmm
like that, tried to make deals around, they'd have been farther ahead. And now they're looking at being weaker, not only the United States being weaker because we're having to fund it, but them being weaker
hmm
in the face of China on their eastern border.
yeah.
They really made a mistake.
Yeah, the thing with Iraq, when they were talking, oh, the baby food, was it, no, it, baby, some baby food factory or something that we blew up, and then it was like Kuwait saying, they're coming down here and they're taking our oil, and I thought, whoa, wait a minute, if we are there to stop Saddam Hussein from gassing his own people, why are we interested in Kuwaiti oil? And see, that's when I called my dad. My brother was
Well,
over there.
now Desert Storm was over Kuwaiti oil, and we solved that
hmm
problem.
Yeah.
But when it came to George Bush going into Iraq, now that was a unilateral operation. That wasn't
Yeah.
a world operation like
Yeah.
through his father. So in Desert Storm, so going into Iraq like that to depose Saddam, perhaps that was a good thing. We knew he had gassed the Kurds, okay? So we knew he'd used weapons of mass destruction.
Now, wasn't it his
But
son that did that, though? If it's been a while. I thought his son was the one that did that, not Saddam.
Well, his sons were terrors in Iraq. They were just mean children. Let's just put it that way. They weren't wonderful kids, and they were doing all sorts of horrors around the country. But it was Saddam's military that went and gassed the Kurds up the mountain.
So I always thought it was his son with his military that went and did this. And then, but we're never going to get. We're never going to get and see, I think this is where it was going to drag on, is we're not going to get the Shiites and the
so the Sunnis and Shiites.
Sunnis, there you go, Sunnis and Shiites. No, and it's same way with it seems like we keep getting into these battles where now it's with Ukraine, it's Ukrainians and the Russians, and it just seems like or North Korea and South Korea. It's always these little battles that we get into that's never going to be solved. North Korea or South Korea is never going to agree with what Kim Jong-un is wanting to do. Same way with Ukraine. They're never going to agree with Russia. And the same way with the Sunnis and Shiites. They're never going to get along. And we keep getting into these wars with this.
That's what happens when politicians believe that they can control the outcomes of a war.
That's right.
And in a world where everybody is so close to each other, not by physical distance, but by time, there is no way for one country to completely dominate another country before a world power gets involved. Nobody knows how these things will shake out. All it takes is how many HIMARS did we have to send over there before all of a sudden Russia started having some serious problems? It wasn't many.
Well, the more we send, the more they get frustrated. So,
but that changed the balance of power. So then Russia had to go to Iran to change the balance of power once again. And so what happens? Then the French or Italians send in some of their more exotic weapons. And so this incrementalism goes back and forth, and what turns out happening is you end up with a meat grinder. And that's what happened in Vietnam. We left Vietnam because it was going to be an endless meat grinder. And that's what's becoming here in Ukraine. probably wouldn't have jumped the border because we'd have rushed in prior to them being able to jump across the border. But we weren't decisive. So we gave them, a little this, that talk. They jumped the border. Then we react. But we don't overreact, or we're not decisive enough to change the complete dynamics of it, and we just keep increasing armaments one step at a time, because there's always that threat of nuclear war out there in the back of everybody's minds. Everybody doesn't want to spend an extra dime they don't have to. But on the other hand, if you look at it from that perspective, you shouldn't go into war.
Yeah.
War isn't something you go in and trade bullet for bullet.
Yeah.
That's a fool's errand.
Yeah. And is there something you said earlier that the United States needs to just pull itself out of these wars?
Well, either they need to try not to get involved in the first place. And now, keep in mind, you can't stay away from war by saying that we don't want to fight war. That just encourages an enemy.
That's right.
You stop a war by being an overwhelming force. If they're afraid you're going to come in and they can't win against you, they won't do it in the first place. Well, that didn't turn out to be the case here in Ukraine. Now, it had been for a little while, but it only takes one administration to change. And if you've got something started clear back in, 2014, here it is 2022, almost 2023 now. Administrations change, there's changes of ideas, world dynamics change, business changes, everything is in constant flux. That's why you never want to go into a war without decisive force, because you just can't plan too far down the road. The world is just too fluid.
Yeah. So
we're looking at battle spaces like we did during World War II, and just in Korea. Look, it doesn't take us 3 months to sail in our people anymore.
No.
We can have boots on the ground anywhere in the world in 12 hours.
Yeah.
We're looking at things in an ancient way, and we haven't adapted to the present. We need to adapt to the present and present quickly, or we're going to have not less of this, but more of this. Sorry to be a Debbie Downer on that.
No. It's the truth. It's fact. And but to wrap it all up, we have world leaders right now that's saying that we're weak, and I think it's chatter, and I think it's bad propaganda, because, like I said earlier, we're number one, and we have been number one, and how could we go from Trump saying "Don't you dare," and they listened, to now we have a new leader that is showing weakness, and of administration that really don't know foreign affairs or war very well, but we still have our generals to carry us through on this and still make us number one, because that was something that was brought up at the G20, is who's and then Klaus Schwab was basically saying, well, I'm going to be world leader, and we're going to have NATO, and everybody needs to fall in line like little chickens. And the one thing that I seen was, and I can't remember which general it was, that said, no, wait a minute now. We are the United States of America, and the military isn't about conforming to what your whims. They brought up the one article that I think Trump does a lot, where if we feel there is a threat to the United States, whether it's foreign or domestic, that the military will step in and take care of the United States. And that's kind of what I wanted to remind everybody tonight, is it doesn't matter what Klaus Schwab wants or what I say or anybody says. And when it comes down to it, it's going to be those big, strong generals that say, we have domestic terrorism. We've got foreign terrorism. Now it's time for us to protect our country. And I think we're starting to switch to that mode, especially since we're going over into Taiwan and we have a vice president and a president kind of showing that weakness that they're going to support China. And in the meantime, we see in China move into our country, but we need to basically know we need to protect Taiwan. So I really do think that I think they're playing a game of I don't even know. I don't want to say it's tag. We're saying, you know what? Yeah, we agree with you, China, and then behind the scenes, we're saying, you know what? We're not gonna play with China, and I think
We
it's
have the government of checks and balances.
yeah.
So even though our State Department may be saying one thing about business, our theater commanders are serious individuals. They're not these folks that politicos that come and go. These are lifelong people
Yeah.
that have dedicated their lives to this, and they're not going to allow whatever assets they have at their disposal to meet our security needs be moved around by every little whim. Now, when these external governments look at this, they see weakness, but this is actually strength. This is how the American government is strong, because we have these internal debates and these debates externally, and we work them out as a group of people, so we can't be moved quickly in any one direction. Whereas you can have a Klaus Schwab show up and say, oh, we're going to go do this and have this whim. Well, that's great, Klaus, but that's not how it's done here.
That's right.
Because of all the checks and balances in our government, it's frustrated every kingdom, fiefdom, even democracy, socialism throughout the world for almost as long as the United States has been functioning, especially since the Civil War, that we don't change course quickly. But when we do change course, we change course in a big, big way. And it's not something they're used to, because they're used to vacillating rapidly this way or that way. Yes, they can adapt more quickly to small situations, but their currency isn't stable. Their military isn't stable. Their educational systems aren't as stable.
Yeah.
We have a lot of things going for us because of the slowness of how our government moves in its totality, its completeness. That's why everybody from around the world runs to the United States to put their money in U.S. banks. Brick and mortar banks in the United States when things go wrong. Yeah, it's nice to go to Switzerland. Switzerland has not been defeated in Europe, but it's a small place, and it can be gotten. The United States, not so much.
Yeah. Well, William, anything? Well, the last thing I have to say is that we do have a great country, and no matter whether it's Taiwan or Ukraine or even having to protect Australia, because it was Jinping said it was Taiwan, then Australia, then it was Africa. And when it comes time, I believe for Australia, I think we're going to have to take a bigger step. And I think that's when we're going to have to prove ourselves. I think Taiwan is going to be an agreement, but it's going to stay the way it is. And I think they're going to move on to Australia. And because Australia seems to be starting to go along with what China wants, but at the same time putting their foot in the door, saying, "No, wait a minute." But I think that's going to be when we're going to have to look at whose military has the military might, and I don't see it in Taiwan.
Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, they have no choice but to stand against China.
Yeah.
it's live or die for them.
Yeah.
Now, way out in Australia, 2,000 miles away, they feel like maybe they have a little more time, and if the prime minister goes and cozies up for a little business here, maybe some personal business, there's always somebody in every country that's willing to sell the coffee.
Yeah, that's so true.
With this expectation that somebody will come to their rescue. But when you're close to the enemy, when you're in the foxhole, that's not the case.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I truly.
I want to say one thing.
Okay.
And that is to all of our veterans' families and veterans and people who serve our communities, our police, our firefighters, everybody, especially those who lost somebody during this Thanksgiving season. We love you, and we so thank you for your service to our country. We hold the values of our country precious, and we know that you provided them for us, and thank you so much. And on this Thanksgiving, wherever you find yourselves in whatever condition, God bless you.
And veterans, there are so many restaurants right now that's willing to give veteran a free meal for tomorrow. Call around if you don't have, like our veteran Ed. Sometimes he don't always get a Thanksgiving meal, and he goes to these restaurants sometimes. They'll give them away, and he loves it. Um, so if you're a veteran out there, call around and talk to a manager and say, I don't want to be alone, or I don't have the money. And you would be surprised that they'll tell you to come in and they will feed you a feast. Um, I believe Cracker Barrel is one that'll do it, and I think they're out of turkeys, but um, I believe they have a ham dinner they're offering. Not for veterans, but like I said, if you're a veteran and you don't want to be alone, or you just need a dinner, call and ask for the manager. Now, don't call at 8 o'clock at night. You're going to need to call at probably 8, 9 in the morning, and before 3 o'clock, in between those hours, and just simply tell them your position and say, you think you guys can pitch in and maybe give me some food? And they will. They'll even load you up with some, doggy bags.
Yeah, so contact, if you don't feel good about that, contact even your community government, contact the American Legion, some of your veterans groups. Everybody's got something going on, and they're going to find room for you.
Yeah,
we have room for everybody.
And the one thing is, 1 in 3 families aren't having Thanksgiving this year. They can't afford it. It's only going to get worse going into Christmas. And start taking, I don't care, a can of soup, or like I said, a bag of rice, something. Take it to these food banks and help these people out. They'll really appreciate it. So, William, I hope you have a good Thanksgiving. You and your pup there. Don't feed them stuffing. They say it's poisonous. You know me, I'm always looking into that. And I've always fed my dog stuffing, and it's like, ugh, I'm lucky I haven't hurt them, because I give my dogs.
She's willing to battle me over that gravy dog food. Trust me, we don't have to worry about stuffing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, mine's got a thing about them gravy bones. I mean, you pull it out and you show it to her, and the bubbles come out the sides. It's just drools and bubbles, and it's like, good grief, over gravy bones? Forget it. I'm not even going to give you turkey. I'll just give you a gravy bone. She loves them. She just, and then my carpet's wet. I have to get a towel, and I got bubbles. But I do every year fix my dogs their own turkey plate. Everything's on there that they can have. They eat the veggies, the turkey and the veggies.
Well, every service dog knows that they always get the last bite, the last portion.
That's right.
Um,
Well,
when they
I
come
give
out
them their
of
own little
restaurant,
plate. So,
the reason they call that a doggy bag is because they get to eat in the vehicle away from the other people. They get their share, so they don't ever have to beg. So
well,
that's a nice thing of being a service dog.
um, the doggy bag, it always goes in my purse. And that's, it's usually a napkin. I wrap up that last bite for the dogs and put it in my purse. Well, I guess my purse smells like it. And my little Scottish Terrier, the one that just passed away, um, I didn't bring him home a bite one time. And I'm thinking, oh, how horrible of me. So I went and got him a little piece of lunch meat and gave it to him, or wrapped it up in a napkin and pretended to get it out of my purse. And I think he knew because he took everything out of my purse that night looking, and he ate my chapstick. And I was like, it was cherry chapstick, but it was like, really? You going to eat my chapstick? Because I didn't bring you that last little bite. They know, those doggies know, I tell you. Okay,
It's a
William.
matter of loyalty.
Yeah. Um, and everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving. There will be no show tomorrow, but we will be back on Friday. And I'm going to do some turkey trivia. And, of course, we'll be here. And then, we'll be getting ready for the holidays. And, uh, yeah, we are only getting bigger and better and stronger. I didn't do the top stories tonight because we had William coming in and there was a lot, and I didn't want to run for 2 hours tonight. So I tried not to do a whole bunch of theatrics tonight. Uh, but with
Ellie,
that,
thank
yeah.
you for the opportunity.
Oh, you're the host with the most, or the hostess with the most, or
I don't think so.
So, okay, you guys, please subscribe and hit the like, hit the bell. Now, um, both Facebook and YouTube sent me an email today saying they are upgrading, and that if you got issues with your either seeing the show or problems during the show or losing connections, it could be on their part. Um, and I know Randy said chat just went away here about 30 minutes ago. So I'm thinking we're having issues with them. I don't think they're going to take us. I think I'm being good enough that they're not going to penalize us for anything lately. But
I have
please,
an old Android system, and sometimes I have to recycle my chat because I have the older software. So
yeah,
go ahead and try that, Rindy.
yeah, or sometimes even restarting your phones. Mine went haywire, and I thought for sure I had to get me a new phone, and I shut it off and turned it back on. It worked perfect. And it's like, ugh. So every now and then I need to shut off my phone and turn it back on. You guys subscribe, hit the like button, hit the share, hit the bell over in Facebook, hit your follow and your like. And tell your friends and family about our show and invite them to watch. And so, with that, folks, we will see you on Friday. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving and God bless. Um, and me and William will see you next week. So, God bless and see you later. Bye bye, folks.